Welcome back, Camden Catholic. Yeah, so it's a snow day, right? I hope it is anyway, because I didn't go to school. I don't know if y'all did, but anyway, let's get after it, okay? So, yes, we have two flips, because yes, we have to stay on pace, because yes, the grind never stops, no days off. All right, so anyway, crisis. It's going to be breaking out all over Europe, especially after this crazy English Civil War that just happened. Roundheads, Cavaliers, Cromwell, blah, right? Charles II, James II. Oh, I got beat up by my wife, or not my wife, but I got beat up by my daughter and my brother, or son-in-law, and his name was William of Orange. What a weird name. But anyway, so crisis is going to break out, right? During the late 1600s, Europe's going to be in a big, big crisis mode. Some of y'all are rewriting this because you forgot that this is actually in the last flip before this one. So, rookie mistake on your part. Now, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. English Civil War, the Spanish Armada. Spanish Armada came before the English Civil War, so I don't know why I put it in that order. That's dumb. Wars of religion, right? Speaking of wars of religion, there's a lot of... Hold on. There we go. There's a lot of wars of religion happening in France, right? Now, things to remember, right, going forward when we're talking about the French timeline and how we get to absolutism in France. First and foremost, write this down. Stop. Write this down. The Bourbons, B-O-U-R-B-O-N-S, okay? The Bourbons rule France. Now, the Bourbon dynasty is a French royal family that rules over France for more than 200 plus years, okay? So, the French wars of religion are going to be breaking out, leading to a lot of the decrease in power of the nobility, right? Now, a lot of it is because it's Huguenots versus Catholics, right? So some of you are like, what's a Huguenot? That's like an astronaut from France? Like, no, that's not an astronaut from France. Get yourself together. All right. Anyway, now, Huguenots versus Catholics. A Huguenot is a French Protestant. Specifically, it's a Calvinist, all right? So anyway, a lot of people are telling themselves, what's up with Calvinism? Why would you want to live in a society where you can't do anything? Calvinists make a lot of money, all right? So not Puritans, because they're annoying, but a lot of the other Calvinists do make a lot of money. Dutch Calvinists make butt tons of money, and the Huguenots make lots of money too. Speaking of lots of money, though, only 7% of the total population of France is Huguenot, but 40% of the nobility has begun to turn towards Huguenots. You see what I'm talking about this whole makes lots of money idea? So 40% of the nobility are going to begin to convert to Calvinism and Protestantism in France. The rest of France is devoutly Catholic, okay? So there's a big problem on the hands of the royal family. How do we deal with this Huguenot annoyance, right? So Catholics had more money and more military, so they're going to begin to try and sweep through and actually try and destroy a lot of these Huguenot factions. So remember when I showed you this picture of the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre with Catherine de' Medici back here counting up all the dead bodies? That's an example of this Huguenot v. Catholic sentiment, right? Now, due to all these wars and stuff like that, the nobles begin to lose a lot of power, okay? Write that down. Nobles begin to lose power due to these wars, okay? So, going forward, though, things to remember, Henry IV is going to be the guy that the St. Bartholomew's Massacre happens at his wedding day, okay? So, Henry IV, known as Henry of Navarre, another guy they talk about in that show, Reign, which actually is surprisingly somewhat historically accurate. Huguenot marries Princess Margaret, daughter of Catherine de' Medici, takes the throne after the death of a guy named Charles IX, okay? So, he converts to Catholicism to be accepted, but here's one of his main moves, okay? He establishes absolute power, all right, with a thing called the Edict of Nantes, okay? The Edict of Nantes says, Catholicism is the official religion of France, but Huguenots are allowed to work in the government and worship as they please. So he brings peace to this entire religious blah kind of thing, right? For a hot second. So anyway, Henry IV decides to sign the Edict of Nantes, trying to slow down some of this religious violence that's happening in France, right? Leading to more power of the kings. So then France is going to have a really weird kind of like traumatic event where the Bourbons are going to put up a bunch of boy kings. Some of you are like, boy kings? I thought all kings were boys, just like these French astronauts. Again, not a French astronaut. A Huguenot is a Calvinist. And second of all, I mean boy king as in when they took power, they were very young. The first one is this guy. Henry IV's son is Louis the 13th, right? We're about to go over a lot of Louis. We're going to talk about Louis the 13th, 14th, 16th, so you're going to have to be able to disseminate them. Now, Louis the 13th, son of Henry, was 9 years old when he took the throne, right? Let's talk about that real quick, all right? Number one, Louis the 13th didn't do a lot, all right? So he didn't do a lot of stuff. One of his only big impacts on history is fashion. He actually brought in the looks of the wig of royals, wearing really big wigs, right? The cuffs on the sleeves, the big flowy collars. He brought in all that stuff, and he actually made it like a European standard of fashion, right? So it's one of his only big things. We also don't really know about like all of his marriages, that they were very valid and stuff like that. So, but the thing about it is, he's 9 years old. How's a 9-year-old going to rule a country? Thing is he doesn't, all right? So, thing about it is 9-year-old boy kings, they don't have any authority to rule an entire country. So what they do is that they actually appoint these people called chief ministers, right? Usually appointed by the Queen Regent, because that's Louis's mom, right? So Margaret, Henry IV's wife, is Louis's mother. And Louis' mother is the mother of the queen, or the mother of the boy king at the time is called a queen regent, right? The queen regent then picks a chief minister. And usually the chief minister is a Catholic priest, or a cardinal in this sense. This one's name is Cardinal Richelieu, right? Cardinal Richelieu is not a nice guy. So what he's going to do the second he comes into office is tries to overturn the Edict of Nantes. And he starts stripping Huguenots' rights away from them. Says you can't work in the government anymore. You can't do this. You can't do that, right? He puts spies in the noble courts. He executes conspirators for trying to dethrone the boy king. He even leads France in the 30 Years' War. He's a very, very, very pivotal person in French history, right? But again, he's a sign of the decrease in the power of the nobility, and that all of this stuff is beginning to pass to the kings, right? We're getting towards an absolutist system because he's stripping power away from nobles. So, with that, he also grows the size of the military. He leads the French in the 30 Years' War with a very large French force. Takes over, I think he beats out Gustavus Adolphus of Sweden. That's in the French phase. He actually does this entire thing. There's actually at one point, so these two guys, speaking of how relatable they are, King Louis thought that he was adult enough to actually go to Reims whenever he was sacking Reims in his own country, mind you. And he like brings in all of these boats, these French military boats, and he brings them in. He's like, you want to see what war looks like, boy? And literally, he lets him watch as these cannons from these French ships destroy the city of Reims, killing thousands of Huguenots. And Louis apparently stood there in awe and like cried the entire time. So he tries to like actually keep the Bourbons in power, but he also tries to destroy these Huguenots, destroying the power of the nobles, letting it pass to the king. He's also the villain in the Three Musketeers movie, in short, and the Three Musketeers movie and book. It's a fun fact. Anyway. So if you ever get a chance today, if you're bored, Hulu has it, I know that. But Disney's Three Musketeers is a great flick. Now, anyway, so the son of Louis the 13th is then going to become king. Put a star next to this guy's name. He's so important. Well, a star, well, you already have a star because he's the Sun King. Get it? I heard y'all laugh. I heard you, all of you. I heard Devin DeLuca back there. I heard Vu back there. I heard all you guys laugh. It was funny. Now, anyway, so big thing about it, though, is he is an absolute ruler at its best, all right? Now, when I say at its best, I mean its most obnoxious and ridiculous, right? So he built the Palace of Versailles in France. Now, really, really quick, next to Versailles, put the following, right? It is Baroque architecture, B-A-R-O-Q-U-E. It's Baroque style, all right? Also, it is not in Paris. It is outside the capital. It is 60 miles outside of Paris. But he believes that he has complete and utter authority. He calls himself the Sun King because he believes that who appointed him. Boom! Very, very, very good job. Jill Orcutt, I heard you. You said divine right? He believed that the God appointed him as the ruler of France, right? He believes that he has divine right to rule, like God said so, okay? So he calls himself the Sun King. He believes that anything he says goes, and if he wants to do anything he wants, he's allowed to do it, right? So he was so obnoxious, and he had the goofiest looking hair out of any royal I've ever seen. Actually, he forced a lot of the nobles to do menial tasks for him. Like, for example, one of the best jobs you could have in France if you were a noble was helping him put his shirt on in the morning. Like, do you want to wear pink or white? I really don't know what you're going for today. So the big thing is that he is a true absolutist at its core, okay? He does a lot of crazy stuff. Now, the Palace of Versailles, though, is his biggest baby, all right? This thing is huge. To give you an idea, like, look how big it is. This is the front, that's the driveway to the Palace of Versailles. This is the backyard. So you see this fountain right here? That's what the size of the fountains on their own. They're as big as football fields, right? To give you an idea of how big this house is. His house itself is probably like 6 or 7 football fields long. It's humongous. It's got over something ridiculous. It's got like over 700 rooms. Hold on, let me look up some like fun facts about it real quick. I'll give you a second. There we go. All right. So, fun fact about the Palace of Versailles, if it's got all these rooms, right? You want to know what's something funny? Guess how many bathrooms it has? This many! Because they didn't have plumbing at the time, right? They had chamber pots and stuff. It's actually really disgusting. He said, every 2 weeks I want all the poop taken out of Versailles. Why is there any in there in the first place? It's so gross. All right, so anyway, well, let's go ahead and look at some of this stuff, okay? Oh, it has over 700 pieces of furniture in it, which is absolutely insane. It was originally a hunting lodge, and then it was turned into a humongous palace. So, it's got tons of different fountains. There was a lot of other little random stuff. I think there's over 300 rooms in it, 0 bathrooms. There it is. Here we go. 350 different living units in size. It's got multi-room apartments. The king and the queen's bedroom are on 2 separate sides. This front gate is completely gold-plated. That's what you ride through to get to the house, right? That is, of course, the Sun King emblem on the outside. This is called the Marble Court. This is where literally the horses would pull up if you're having a party at the Palace of Versailles. Look how beautiful this place is. It's one of my top 10 places I have to go before I die. So it's a massive, massive microcosm of Baroque architecture and beautiful architecture, right? Also, the gold-plated roof. He's got gold on his roof. It's ridiculous. But this is the marble court. The horses would ride up on their carriages. That is made of Carrara and Italian marble and granite. It is beautiful. Apparently, you can see yourself in it. So I've heard myths before about how apparently, like, the horses would get scared. But anyway, this right here, this is the king's apartment, right? It's about 100 yards away from the queen's apartment. And some of you are like, wait a minute, why didn't they stay in the same bedroom together? Because Louis didn't really want to do that. Louis actually slept in a completely separate bedroom because he had 3 major mistresses. He had more children with his mistresses than he did with his wife, okay? So he actually had 7 kids with one of them. With his actual wife, he only had 3, and only one of them lived to be an adult, all right? So it's actually crazy that these things happen. The one that lived to be the adult was his son, Louis XV. So, going forward, that's the king's apartment. Look how nice his bedroom is. It's huge. And this is the queen's apartment, about 100 yards away, right? So, this right here is the Hall of Mirrors, right? The Hall of Mirrors can apparently hold over 2,000 people in it, and it's a party venue, right? It's the entire back area of the palace. And you can see the king's royal throne here. But he did it, and so it actually looked like there were even more people inside of it. That's why he lined it with different mirrors. Now, I've heard from people, I had to look this up to verify, that there are actually trap doors behind all of these mirrors that so servants could pop out, grab things, and go away without ever being seen. Right? He apparently also used to have crazy parties where he would invite all the nobles over so they could see the grandeur of his place. And this is his backyard. That's ridiculous. All right? So, the Palace of Versailles, like I said, over 700 different pieces of furniture, over 350 different living units. He's got no bathrooms whatsoever. And he also, his house was so nice that he ruled from it. All right, so he actually never went to Paris, the capital city, that often. He ruled from his home, right? The royal court is what he called it. It's a huge council of princes and nobles, and they carried out all of his policies for him from his house. So he did pretty much whatever he wanted to, whenever he wanted to, right? He was also an uber Catholic, so he is actually going to persecute and destroy a lot of the Huguenot churches and schools and try to force them to convert. Like, why can't somebody just be nice to the Huguenots? It's not like they're doing anything that bad. But in all actuality, probably the nobles were turning to Huguenots so they could actually have a reason to dislike the crown so they could fight them. And there's a lot of other different motives behind it. Oh, other famous quote. So there's a chance that he never said this, but I like to believe that he said it. Write in quotes what I'm about to say. Okay? Not this part, but when I say write this down, write this down. But apparently, a noble, one of the nobles came up to him and said, "Sir, sir, what of the state? What should we do about the state?" And he cut him off and he just yelled at him, "I am the state!" Like, that's ridiculous, right? So, right, "I am the state," big quotes. Now, did he probably say it? Who knows? But it's a good example of how, like, his authority, right? "I am the state." Like, so, anyway, this is his royal court inside of Versailles. Look at all of the these are all men, by the way. Look at all the except for these ladies. Look at all the nobles, though. All up here where he ruled from his home, right? This is Louis XIV standing in the middle, the Sun King, the divine right ruler himself. Now, finances, though, big thing about him, the man loved to spend money, all right? He spent the entire French budget on his palace and funding his royal court, right? By the time he actually got out of office, 50% of the French tax money was used to pay off interest from debts that he owed to other countries. That's insane, all right? So he also adopted mercantilistic policies, right? So mercantilism is like the idea we're going to export more than we import, and we're going to try to accrue as much gold as we possibly can to try and have more money than everybody else. His financial advisor was a guy named Jean-Baptiste Colbert, and it's a complete other different story, though. Anyway, last thing, let me look up the years of his reign. Louis XIV. Because I want to see if he's the one that actually funded the, no, he's not. So, but yeah, he spent ridiculous amounts of money, right? So he also increased tariffs, which is taxes on imports, to try and up the value of French goods, right? So anyway, he died with a tremendous amount of debt. He's actually one of the leading reasons why the French revolted against their king later on in 1789, right? So now, he started more wars than you could possibly imagine. He believed that you're not a real absolutist unless you keep claiming more land, right? Big wars include the War of Spanish Succession. What else? The French Wars of Religion. A lot of different things, right? But he started more wars than you could possibly ever even think of. So, and that's where we're going to stop, right? That's all for today. So, Louis XIV, the best example of absolutism in France that he has to offer. Best example of how you strip power from nobles is by getting some religions to fight one another, right? So, but anyway, that's where we're going to stop, and I appreciate y'all hanging in there with me today. So we got one more thing to talk about in class. We might actually have an extra day to review if we can bang it out tomorrow. All we got to do is talk about Russia, and we're done. So test is going to be on Wednesday. Don't forget, we're going to finish this bracket up in this review game too. So thank y'all for getting along with me on a snow day. I'll see you guys tomorrow.